Welcome to the Business of Thinking podcast. This is the place for high achievers who want more than motivation. They want mastery. Here we skip the surface level talk and go straight into the psychology of high performance.
Hello and welcome to the Business of Thinking. My name's Richard Reid and today I'm pleased to be joined by Vanessa Abraham, and she is a speech language pathologist with an interesting backstory too. So welcome, Vanessa.
Hi, nice to be here. I'm so excited to tell my story with you today.
Looking forward to it. But before we go into that, what is a speech pathologist?
Okay, so a speech pathologist, we have many hats. That's a great question because so many people are confused by what we do because they hear the word speech, so they think we work on speech, but we also work on cognitive communication, we work on voice, we work on swallowing disorders, we work on social skills. In addition to articulation, language, we work on stuttering. So there's more than just the speech component. Most people, again, they think, oh, speech pathologist, you work on just articulation, speech, but no, there's so many more things that we work on.
Fantastic. And we'll talk more about those as we go through. But tell us a little bit about your story. Tell us how you got into this career and tell us then about the interesting spin on your own life experience and how that played into some of the areas in which you were already working.
So I've been working as a speech pathologist probably 15-ish years. I started as an assistant and then I went to grad school and I got my master's degree and then I became the bona fide speech pathologist. And then my career took an unexpected turn in 2019 when I became the patient in bed requiring speech pathology services. So I learned what it was like, not only being the clinician for, 10-ish years, but then I wound up being the patient in the bed, paralyzed with a neurological disorder that left me unable to communicate, left me unable to eat food safely, and left me unable to move parts of my body correctly. So it was something that happened to me within a week's time.
Wow.
Just was ventilated, rushed to ICU, near-death experience, and it really transformed my entire career, how I look at my career, how I go about treating patients now, because now I know what it's like being on the other side of the profession. I understand the depression going through of a neurological disorder and learning to communicate. I learned what it's like to not have a means to communicate. I learned what it's like to only use your eyes to communicate or, your fingers or gestures.
Yeah.
I was always a speech therapist on the other side. So it's completely transformed every angle of my profession.
Yeah, I can only begin to imagine. It'd be really good to delve into that in some more detail. But tell us a little bit about the journey you went through as the patient, because that sounds absolutely terrifying. Tell us sort of the emotional journey. Tell us some of the ways in which you learned to deal with that. And be really interested to see if you've got any insights that you could share with people, perhaps in other walks of life, but perhaps they can apply some of those skills to their own experiences.
Absolutely. I learned a lot. I learned more than any textbook would ever be able to explain to me or teach me. So how it happened was I was very healthy. Like I would be at the gym every day, going to yoga, hiking, biking, very active, no sign of any illness coming on. We went out camping and within 24 hours, I woke up. I went to bed one night and I was fine. Woke up the next morning and I thought, whoa, I've got a really bad case of the flu. Like something hit me overnight, big time. And I just looked at my husband. I said, I got to go home. I can barely function right now. So we packed up and drove home. And, typical illness for me is, sleep it off, take some NyQuil, rest, whatever, drink some fluids, and give me 24, 48 hours and I'll start coming around. Well, I didn't start coming around. I just continually got worse, getting real nauseous, had a lot of neck pain, some vomiting, some just really weird symptoms. And I just wasn't getting better. So my husband finally looked at me. He goes, you need to go to urgent care, because I wasn't one to go to the doctor. I thought, just let me sleep. Give me some space. I'll sleep it off. And urgent care that night, they gave me an IV. They gave me some anti-nausea medicine, the IV of fluids, just because I was vomiting so much and they were worried about dehydration. And they kind of just sent me home. And it wasn't until that night that I woke up and I fell out of bed and my husband just said, you know what, this is weird. There's something more going on here. We need to take you into ER. So we went to ER And just to fast forward for lack of time, but within 48 hours, I was in ICU, ventilated, slowly becoming paralyzed. So when I was ventilated, I was unable to communicate. At that point, I was only able to communicate with my eyes.
Wow. So it went downhill pretty rapidly.
Very rapidly. And the first ICU I was at, they realized that she needs a higher level of care. We don't know what's going on. We just know she's spiraling out of control and we can't figure out what's going on. MRIs were inconclusive. Blood work was inconclusive. So I was transferred about 2.5 hours to another hospital, UCSD in San Diego. And that's where I was for about a month, where I continually declined before I started to show signs of improvement. That's where I was eventually given a PEG tube for swallowing. And I went through the whole continuum of learning to communicate again. So I started out with the eye gaze, as I said, and then I progressed to being able to point to letters on an alphabet board and spell words like RICHARD, Richard. And then I was able to at least use my phone to do text to speech.
Yeah.
And then eventually they gave me on my tracheostomy a thing called a passé-muir valve that allows you to vocalize with a tracheostomy. And now here I am, free of all medical tubes and medical procedures and able to communicate again.
Incredible after all of that. I can only begin to imagine what you were thinking as you were going through it. How conscious were you as all this was going on?
I was very conscious, very aware. And back to your question, if you can't imagine what I was thinking, I was thinking the worst thoughts. I was wondering if I'm going to live. Am I ever going to see my baby again? Am I ever going to hold my baby? At this point in the ICU, I couldn't move my body. I couldn't even get out of bed. So the thoughts of, will I ever be the same mom again? Am I going to be the mom that's nonverbal, that's only able to communicate with, an alphabet board or a phone that does text to speech? I had the worst anxiety, the worst panic attacks, the greatest fears. And that was just in ICU. But then when I was finally discharged, that anxiety just turned into profound depression.
Yeah, I've worked with people before, particularly with strokes, and it's often when they come out of hospital that it really, really hits them, and a lot of the support sort of slips away when they come out. Was it like that for you?
Yes, you just nailed it. The supports, everything changes because you go from being, you have all these nurses on you, everybody providing therapy for you, whether it's OT, PT, speech, you have a team of doctors, everybody there waiting on you, and then you go home, and everybody's life goes back to normal.
Yeah.
Your friends go back to work. The first month, everybody's bringing you meals. Well, I couldn't eat a meal, but they were there to help my husband. They were there to help me. They were helping my daughter. And then all of a sudden, everybody's life goes back to where they were. People had to go back to work, and rightfully so. Nothing against them, but it's just the way things go. And then I was left at home. My husband had to go back to work. I was left at home alone by myself, wondering if this is good as it gets. I wish they would have removed all life support for me in the ICU. If this is going to be my life, why am I still living? I don't want to live this life.
Right. So some pretty dark thoughts at that point.
Yes. And that's what brings me to this next point that I talk about in my book that I wrote. I launched it last January. It's called Speechless. That I get into the topic of something I learned about. And again, this is something I didn't know as a speech pathologist, a practicing speech pathologist for 15 years. That there's this thing called post-intensive care syndrome, or PICS, P-I-C-S.
Okay.
And that refers to all of the cognitive deficits that ICU patients experience, the depression, the anxiety, the PTSD, Richard, that we go through as ICU survivors. That me, as a speech pathologist all these years, I never even considered that this patient may be very depressed. They just got a horrific diagnosis. Their life went from this to this. And I never even really considered that until I lived it. And I realized with me that, wow, this is scary. This is terrifying. They may not want to live. So I'm very passionate about PICS now, and that's completely transformed the way I look at my patients, clients. And that's the first thing I always look at when I'm assessing somebody too. I always look at, okay, what's their cognitive state? How are they feeling? Are they motivated to get better? If they're not motivated to get better, we need to work on the mental state first.
Yeah. So it's added that extra psychological component to what you're doing. You're looking at people in a more holistic view than perhaps you were before.
I look at their mental health before anything. I just
Yeah.
I'm so passionate about that because I know with me, I was in such a dark place that those suicidal thoughts were going through my head every hour of, okay, I couldn't drive, but I thought if I could drive, maybe I can like drive my car off a cliff. If I had a gun or, I'd look around my house and I'd think, okay, how could I kill myself in this house? What could I do? And that is a horrific state to be living in. And then again, I never realized that my patients would ever be contemplating that level. It's something I never even imagined myself. I've always been a half glass full kind of person.
Yeah.
Very positive.
It's human nature, isn't it? We see people in the way that we see the world. Yeah.
Yep. And then that made me just fight like mad to get better. I just spiraled so far out of control that I thought, okay, my daughter needs me. She needs the mom that I wanted to be. I need to get that person back. And that just drove me to be this crazy researcher, to research any modality to get better. I was on prescription medications for depression, and those caused all sorts of horrific side effects.
Yeah.
And, sometimes my heart was racing. I felt like, oh my gosh, am I going to have a heart attack now? But it just led me down this deep rabbit hole of natural healing. How can we heal from things that are neurological in different ways? And it just completely transformed the way I approach speech pathology now.
It's interesting, isn't it? How often it's those situations we wouldn't choose for ourselves that actually enable us to grow. Look, when we've got a bit of distance from them, we can see that. But when we're in the midst of it, it's hard to see that. Tell us a little bit about the process you went through. You talked about sort of digging into some of these other ways of sort of healing. What was the journey that you went on personally that helped you to pull yourself out of those suicidal thoughts and start to move forward?
What I did is I just immersed myself in anything I could that intrigued me. I talked to people. I researched different modalities of healing. Like I said before, I just went down this rabbit hole of research, and I would pick up books. I would read things online, and I would listen to podcasts where people were talking about books they read and the things that resonated to me in terms of healing from neurological disorders. I started to put different spins on them. And like you said, people with stroke. Well, I didn't have a stroke. However, I had neurological impairment. So then I would think, okay, well, how could this help me? How could that modality or that person's podcast that they were talking about this product, how can that help me with a communication disorder? How could that help my vocal cords? Yeah. How can that device strengthen the vocal cords? How can that strengthen the muscles used for voice and swallowing? I just started researching, getting books, talking to people in the field. I was just desperate. I think you get to this point of such deep desperation that you'll do anything and you'll ask questions even if you feel like you're stupid. Because like when you're in school and everybody's afraid to ask a question because
everybody's thinking the same thing. Yeah.
Everybody's thinking the same thing. Nobody wants to ask. But I was that one that I was like, I'm desperate. I don't care. How can this help voice and swallowing? How can this help my right arm, paralyzed arm? How can, I have these things called vocal cord striders where the vocal cords, they just don't approximate, right? And it gives me these spasms and it's hard to breathe and they're terrifying. Well, then I would hear about different modalities and I would call the companies and say, okay, how could this help with this? Or vagus nerve stimulation or recurrent laryngeal nerve stimulation. This is what I've got. This is what I've been dealt with. This nerve is damaged. This one's not properly functioning. And I just started talking to people. And like I said, too, there was no dumb question for me. I just thought, I'm desperate. Yeah. I want my life back. I want my daughter to have the mom she deserves. And no holding back. I just dove right in.
Yeah. And you see this so often, don't you, that when people have a purpose, they're willing to withstand pretty much anything. And, and you mentioned sort of asking those supposedly dumb questions. That's putting pride aside, isn't it? Because your goal and your purpose is so much more important.
Mm-hmm. And I wasn't afraid to think outside the box either. I thought, you know what? I may be the only speech pathologist treating people this particular way.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking outside the box. And if it's worked for me, it could possibly work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure the journey you've been through has been absolutely inspiring for some of those people who've maybe lost hope that you've worked with. They've seen living proof of what can happen.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people reach out to me about my book and say, "Wow, this is giving me hope." There's some universities even using my stories in speech pathology programs, which is wonderful because it's introducing them to medical trauma and PICS, post-intensive care syndrome,
Yeah.
and what it's like being the patient. Yes, textbooks are important and everything that they're teaching in the universities is very important. But there's also that human side of it that they need to know about, that these patients in the bed are mothers, their fathers, their grandmas, their grandfathers, their aunts and uncles. They're human beings that want to get back to their previous life. And depression is real. The ICU staff, they're wonderful at surviving or helping you survive and getting you home. But when you get home, there's like this missing piece too. When you get home, they send you home and you're alive. Great. But the healing really begins when you get home. There's so much more that happens once you get home, and they're overlooking the fact that you send these patients home and they're depressed. They don't have mental health services for you.
And I'm guessing going home is the reality check, isn't it? That's when you see the distance between where you were and where you want to be. Whereas I guess when you're in hospital, to some degree, you're removed from the full reality of your experience.
And you nailed it, because when I got home is when I realized, wow, I can't drive. This is the home I was at 6 weeks ago, and I was thriving. And now I'm back in this home and I can't even get to the toilet or shower myself. And that's a depressing reality too of, okay, now in order to get a shower, I have to sit in a shower chair. Whereas just 6 weeks ago, or for me, 8 weeks ago, I was fully independent. I could get in my car and drive to the gym and go to the gym and run on the treadmill. Well, now I can't not only get in the car, I can't run. I'm barely walking. So again, that just is all factors that lead to depression.
Yeah, it's almost like a grieving process, isn't it? Sort of sadness for the loss of one form of living. Yeah.
Yeah, you go through the grieving process, absolutely, and all the way through to that stage of acceptance. But it's very, very hard. You're grieving the old self. And a lot of us, we lose our identity. Like, I was the mom. Well, I was still a mom. I was still had a child, but I wasn't able to do the things that I did before. I wasn't able to go into the kitchen and cook a meal, much less eat the meal. I wasn't able to go to work. I was still a speech pathologist, but I wasn't able to get in my car, drive to work, go to work for 8 hours, come home, pick up my daughter. All I could do was sit on the couch and wait for somebody to pick me up and take me to therapy sessions.
Yeah. Yeah. So the control was outside of your hands, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And how long was your recovery process? How long would you say it took before you thought, yeah, actually, I'm doing all right here?
Years, plural. I was off work for a year, and then I got back to work in 2020, which was really interesting timing of it all, because it was right during COVID when I went back to work. And then I went back to work just because we were working from home. Otherwise, Richard, I probably would have stayed at home. But the fact that I was able to stay at home, I didn't have to worry about climbing stairs at work. I didn't have to be, physically present. I didn't have to get in my car and drive there. I was just able to ease back into work in a very safe, comfortable environment. Like I said, otherwise I wouldn't have. But it really, to be completely honest with you, so I got sick in 2019. I feel like massive transformations have happened in just this past year, 2025.
Okay.
Still have a lot of residual deficits, lung-wise, physically, strength-wise, but I'm able to drive, I'm able to eat, I'm able to talk, I'm able to do, nobody would know, put it that way. No, if somebody saw me, they wouldn't know I'm dealing with things. But this major transformation in 2025 was my book launching.
Okay.
Because I've used my experience and the knowledge that I have to put it into a book, to educate the world, to educate the clinicians that are graduating, that are going out into the profession this year. I've done speaking engagements, podcasts like yours, where I'm able to actually use this story to better the world, to better others, to help others. And that indirectly has helped me significantly just navigate the depression, gives me a purpose. So that's been the major transformation mentally. Physically, I still continue to like go to the gym, try to work on strength training, lung capacity. I have a lot of like residual lung weaknesses, voice, but stuff like, you don't know anything right now.
I wouldn't have known if I didn't know the story.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that I know, and I call them invisible disabilities. So many people are walking around with PTSD. Do we see it? No.
It's massive. I work with it all the time. It's there for so many people. Yeah.
So many people, beyond just people that have come back from war. People have PTSD, they have anxiety, and you just can't see those things. So again, that's made me more aware too of people that I'm seeing in the community. Like we walk around the stores and you think, okay, how many of these people have invisible disabilities? Probably most people have some type of psychological wounds. But yeah, the book has really, really helped me. And people always say that, and I didn't think anything of it. People say, oh yeah, it gives you purpose or whatever. And I thought, oh, okay, well, we'll see. But it's helped.
Fantastic. And for those people who haven't read the book, a lot of our audience are sort of business people, entrepreneurs. Are there any elements within the book that might be useful for those people, even if they haven't encountered the kind of challenge that you have?
Yeah, so I do talk, and it's more towards the end of the book, of like that driving force for me of what forced me to get better, and just emerging myself with people that resonated with me, people that had like values. I wasn't afraid like I said before, I wasn't afraid to be the one to raise my hand and ask those questions. I knew that was what it was going to take to get out there, to grow a new business, to write a book, to gain all the knowledge that I needed to get to where I am now career-wise. Yeah. And I would just, I recommend to people, it's like, don't be, there's my voice. Don't be afraid. Just go for it. If you believe in it, don't give up. Just fight for what you believe in, career-wise, business-wise. And don't be afraid. Like, try to knock that barrier down of being afraid to ask those questions. Read books. I am at the library all the time. I'm on Amazon. I'll do Google searches on various topics of healing. I'm very much into like red light therapy and e-stim devices. I have an e-stim device called the Neubie, which completely transformed my life.
So what's e-stim?
So e-stim, electrical stim. So the Neubie device is a device that really works on neuroplasticity. It gets that brain-body connection going.
Okay.
And it's been transformative for me because of my neurological impairment. So, and there's also a program on there that I work with, or I try to do it a couple times a week. Sometimes I don't, just because life gets busy, but it's really working on just relaxation, parasympathetic nervous system drive, getting you into a more relaxed state, because as ICU survivors, and honestly, it doesn't even have to be an ICU survivor, just people in general.
I was going to say, I think most people could benefit from that, couldn't they? Yeah.
Yes, because I would say 100% of the world is in a very stressful state right now. We're all busy working, we're raising kids, we're, business-wise, and we need that downtime. We need that parasympathetic drive. We need more of that. We are operating in sympathetic drive. And for me, as an ICU survivor and trauma survivor, and, trying to learn to walk, talk, swallow, everything all over again, the stress, raising a daughter at the same time, the sympathetic nervous system was activated 24/7. I was not sleeping, the insomnia, the flashbacks of ICU, seeing ambulances. It was just, I was in bad state. So I try to do that too, just to bring me down a few notches, make me a little bit more present in life. So that's been a big part of my healing journey. And that's, I talk about that towards the end of my book too, of, look, I tried something, I believed in it, I started researching it. I thought, okay, how can this device that's used not primarily, but it's used a lot for like NFL players, athletes. Well, I'm not an athlete. I'm the patient in the bed that's paralyzed. I'm not throwing a football. I'm not playing tennis. I'm not playing golf. I'm not super fit at this point. I was before, but now I'm not. How can this apply to what I need as a speech pathologist? Can this device that's used for these other populations, can that work on stuttering? Can that work on voice and swallowing? I started researching, started talking to people, and they're like, we don't have a speech pathologist using this device for this reason, but I don't see why you couldn't. And here's why. And I started researching it, again, talking to people, talking, listening to podcasts on different topics, different subjects. And yeah, and here I am now.
I think it's a fantastic story and a great inspiration for anybody to hear. We've talked a little bit about how what's happened has informed your practice in terms of being a speech pathologist. How do you think it's changed you for the better as a person? I often talk to people about this idea of traumatic growth, how as an individual we can grow in a positive way from a seemingly negative experience. How do you think it's changed you for the better?
Oh, it's changed me for the better. As I mentioned before, PTSD. I'm able to see people in a different light. I see people for their invisible disabilities. When I'm out, like I said before, when I'm out in the community, I'm often wondering, okay, maybe that person's struggling with who knows what. If somebody comes to me and they have a bad day or they're upset about something, I always look at nervous system functioning. What could possibly be going on in their world that they're behaving this way? Why is, this child that I'm working with very tearful? Why is she crying every time I see her? What's going on? We need to address the nervous system. We need to talk about some of the emotional component of having a disability. And I've just had this conversation recently with a client that was very tearful. And I just kept thinking to myself, what's going through her mind as an adult with a disability right now that's causing some of these tears. So I'm like I said before, I'm just so very aware of mental health, and I'm more compassionate than I ever was before. I'm more trauma informed. Yeah. I used to think that I was a trauma informed therapist, but no, I was not. I'll admit that right now on your podcast to the world, that I thought I understood trauma and being a trauma informed therapist, but I understand it to a whole new level, and to the point that I speak about it to other speech pathologists of really what trauma, medical trauma. People associate trauma as being, you're abused, neglected.
Absolutely, yeah. They apply to quite a limited field, don't they? Yeah. Yeah,
but nobody thinks of medical. They think, okay, you were in ICU and you survived. Yeah. You're a warrior. You're a fighter. Which, yes, warriors and fighters. Yes, to get through ICU, you got to fight. But they don't think of it being as a traumatic experience. And they don't think about follow-up appointments are traumatic. To go back and have a follow-up MRI and hear those sounds and the smells and
all those triggers,
the white walls. So it just made me so much more aware.
Yeah. And I think that's something that would benefit most people, isn't it? To be more empathetic, to be curious for other people's situations rather than making assumptions about it. And I guess the world in which we live is so fast. Often even if we're well-intentioned, we don't do that, do we? So it sounds like it's slowed you down and helped you to view things differently.
Yeah, you just said a good word, slowed you down, made me more present with my clients too. I can sit there and look at them in the eyes and say, what's going on? Let's talk about some of these deeper issues that are preventing you from healing too. Let's talk about some childhood traumas that may be preventing you from healing. I'm very much into that as well, of like, let's talk about the fears, the traumas, the PTSD, the anxiety. Let's dig into that so your body can get into a more parasympathetic state. When you're in parasympathetic state, your body can heal. But when you're in fight and flight and you're just so stressed, your muscles are tight, you're not going to heal properly. And I can say that because that was me. Yeah.
And I think the other thing that comes across when you're talking is your great humility, in that you acknowledge where there were gaps in your knowledge and how you've learned from that. And you weren't afraid to put your hand up when you didn't understand things that you were asking people about. And I think that's important for anybody, isn't it? I think, there's often that sort of reluctance to do that. And particularly I notice with sort of senior people in businesses, often there's that temptation to seem to be all knowing, all seeing, And sometimes it is about saying, well, I don't know. What do other people think?
Yeah, I was that way even in grad school, even before I became sick. I remember in grad school, friends sitting next to me would say, hey, Vanessa, can you ask this question? Ask this question. And I was just, and I just thought, you know what? I'm here and I'm paying a lot of money for this education. I'm going to ask questions. I don't care. They can judge me. And that served me well now as an ICU survivor, because I was able to think outside the box and ask questions and research. Oh, have I read so many books? Wow. Even now when I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't sleep, I just turn on a podcast and I'm like, wow, they just said something really interesting. I'm going to research that when I wake up in the morning.
Brilliant. Love it. Love it. So it sounds like 2025 has been a really big year for you with the book launch. And you mentioned some of the things that have sort of come off the back of that. What's the future hold for you from here on in?
So, wow, a lot of exciting things. In January, I'm doing a workshop, a 3-part workshop where we're going to talk about medical trauma. I'm working with a woman named Sarah. She's at Medical Trauma Support, and she's a social worker. So we're doing a 3-part series. There's another woman that's going to be on it too. She's a nurse.
Okay.
Her name is Mary. She's part of the Butterfly Pig, and she does children's ICU toys to help with just trauma and helping kids get through medical procedures. So I'm doing this 3-part workshop, 3 different days. That's going to be in January.
And is that in the US? Is that sort of face-to-face thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And all the information can be found online, like on my social media, if anybody wants to come to that or attend those. I have different speaking engagements lined up for 2026. And then in January, I'm sorry, not January, but in June, we are holding a retreat for medical providers. So anybody that wants to come that's interested in learning more about medical trauma and post-intensive care syndrome will be holding a retreat in June at Miraval in Texas, in Austin, Texas. And that's going to be Sarah with Medical Trauma Support and I are going to be hosting that. So a lot of interesting and fun things. I'm contemplating book number 2. I don't know exactly what it would look like, but
no flies on you.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to keep the momentum going and helping people. And so it's been good, and it's given me purpose. Fantastic.
And I think we all need that, don't we? We do our best work, and we get through adversity better when we've got something that we're working towards. Yeah, absolutely. And where can people find out more about you and some of the things that you're going to be doing in 2026?
So I have my Instagram account, speechless_SLP. So speechless comes from my book, Speechless, How a Speech Therapist Lost Her Ability to Communicate and Her Silent Struggle to Reclaim Her Voice and Life. Instagram is speechless_SLP. SLP, for anybody that doesn't know, stands for Speech Language Pathologist. I'm on Facebook as well, Speechless SLP. And my website is www.aneuhealing.com. So you can follow me, get some information on post-intensive care syndrome and all sorts of fantastic modalities for healing naturally. And it's all good.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Vanessa. It's been great chatting with you today. We'd love to have you back on again at some point. Any final words for the audience before we wrap up?
Just keep asking questions. Don't give up. Ask questions. Read. That's my big takeaway here is just, don't be afraid to raise your hand and seek knowledge. It's powerful.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Vanessa Abraham.
Absolutely. Thank you.
This is the business of thinking. Mastery doesn't end here. See you in the next episode.